March 10th, 1945, Remagen, Germany. On the rail line rides a monster the Americans call Iron Centipede, a German armored train with a plated locomotive, 3 flak cars bristling with 3.7 centimeters and 2 centimeters veerlings, and 4 gun wagons crowned with Panzer IV turrets. The Centipede guards bridges, shreds convoys, and every time U.S. Ninth Army's columns try to break the line, it emerges from a tunnel, rakes the valley with tracers, and vanishes back into the dark. March 10th, 1945. Our Valley, north of Remagen. The rail line snakes along the cliffs like a steel artery feeding the Ruhr. On it rides a monster the infantry have named the Iron Centipede, an armored train with an armored BR-57 locomotive, 2 flak cars mounting 3.7 centimeters and 2 centimeters veerling guns, 2 boxy gun wagons with Panzer IV turrets grafted on top, and a caboose-turned-mobile ammo bunker. It guards bridges, punches through roadblocks, and every time Ninth Army's columns try to cut the line, it appears, rakes the riverbank with tracers, and vanishes into a tunnel before thunderbolts can dive. The 78th Infantry Division's after-action report calls it effectively untouchable in current weather due to canyon flak, tunnel cover, and overhead rock. The order from IX Tactical Air Command is conservative recon only, no low-level strikes, south of Arweiler. First, Lieutenant Cole Merritt, 370th Fighter Group, flies a P-38 Lightning he refuses to repaint. The booms gleam mirror bright. He learned to fly low, dusting orchards outside Visalia. He never trusted altitude. He knows the German armored train, Iron Centipede's schedule better than the men who brief it because he's been watching sun angles on that canyon for a week. The problem is simple and murderous. The train's flak cars don't need radar. Their optics and periscopes, tucked under armored brows, have a clear field of fire down the bends. Anything high is bracketed. Anything medium gets walked by converging tracers. Anything low is shredded unless it's on top of them before a gun captain can shout, "Traverse." The P-47 seconds tried rockets from 1,500 feet missed into rock. A B-26 put a pair of 500-pounders on a portal door the door held. The Centipede comes out, kills, and ducks back in. Infantry can't blow the line. Every culvert is pre-sighted. Engineers won't get within 800 yards while those flak wagons live. Merritt's idea isn't firepower, it's a trick. In his survival kit is a square signal mirror, polished like a scalpel. In the maintenance shack is roll tape and wire. In his head is the canyon's morning geometry. Between 0, 9, 30 and 1000, the sun bounces off the south wall and turns a low approach from the west into a beam weapon. He tapes 3 mirrors to the Lightning, one under the right wing root aimed forward and down, one he bolts into the nose gear door cutout, one he straps with safety wire to the chin of his drop tank. In the cockpit, he scratches a grease pencil line on the windscreen at the azimuth, where, at canyon floor height, the sun will blow straight back down the rails like a heliograph. The squadron commander reads the fragmentary order and says the same thing everyone else has. Do not go down in there. Merritt signs for fuel, nods, and wheels his Lightning to the blast pen. He mounts 10 HVARs, white-tipped 5-inchers, capable of chewing through armor, and a pair of 500 seconds. He radios no one but his wingman. "I'll be off the treetops. If I'm not back in 10, call me stupid and go home." At 9:42, the Centipede noses out of the Durnau tunnel. Its flak captains scan the sky. They do not look for a reflection clawing along the riverbank at 40 feet. Merritt drops gear, doors a crack to cant the nose mirror, banks to the grease pencil mark, and the whole east wall turns to weaponized daylight. In 3 seconds, every optic and periscope on the front wagon whites out. Gunners shout, traverse blindly, too late. The Lightning erupts from the glare like a thrown knife. The Centipede's commander, Hauptmann Gerhard Albrecht, 31, decorated for his Eastern Front service, never sees the attack coming. His crew do, but only as light. The first reflection hits the forward flak cupola like a camera flash magnified by the canyon wall. Every glass lens turns to a white void. Gun crews instinctively flinch, eyes burning. Albrecht yells for covering fire, but the guns are blind, firing into sunlight. For 1/2 second, the armored train's greatest strength, its optical precision, becomes its weakness. That's the window Merritt calculated. 3 seconds of blindness, maybe 4. Enough for one strike. He's already diving through the glare, throttles full forward, engines howling. Airspeed climbs past 380 knots. The P-38's twin booms hum like wires about to snap. Merritt isn't aiming at the locomotive. He's aiming for the joint between the second flak car and the first gun wagon, the place every train is weakest. He toggles the first pair of rockets from under the wings at 600 yards, point blank by aerial standards. The HVARs streak out, their smoke trails vanishing into light, and hit like punches from God, one punching through the coupling, the other into a pile of spare ammo. The explosion bends steel. The entire midsection of the train rears upward, wheels shrieking off the rails. Merritt yanks hard left, banks into the canyon wall so tight that gravel sprays from his wingtips. Tracers whip overhead, blind but furious. He loops under them, hugging the river so low his props shave spray. Behind him, the forward wagons burn, still firing into the sun. The German crew finally adjusts. One flak car rotates its turret by feel, bursts, stitching the canyon wall in arcs. Merritt pulls up into a climbing turn, reverses, and comes in from the opposite direction north to south, where the mirrors now bounce light into the rear cars. Same trick, new agony. Gunners squint through tears, aiming at ghosts. He releases both 500-pounders on a delayed fuse, right over the ammo wagon. They detonate under the roof plates, sending fragments and compressed air through the interior like knives. The blast blows the caboose clean off the track and into the river. A column of fire boils up, black and orange against the cliffs. Merritt's lightning skims past the plume, shuddering from the shockwave. One fragment shears the edge of his right boom. He doesn't care. The mirror under the wing root is gone, melted by heat, but he's already turning for his third pass. The Centipede isn't dead yet. The locomotive, armored and furious, still runs. The engineer jams the throttle forward, trying to reach the safety of the next tunnel. Steam jets from ruptured pipes, the whistle stuck open in a continuous metallic scream. Merritt watches it through the canopy and smiles a thin, exhausted smile. He's out of bombs, half his rockets gone. All that's left are the .50 caliber Brownings in the nose. He dives one last time, perfectly aligned with the rails. The glare trick is spent. Now it's precision. He fires in 3-round bursts, walking tracers along the boiler seam. The steam line ruptures. The pressure gauge jumps to the red, then bursts. The train's nose jerks upward, wheels locking. The mighty armored locomotive that had terrorized an entire sector stops dead mid-tunnel mouth, pistons seizing, iron glowing cherry red. Merritt climbs, breath fogging the canopy. Behind him, the canyon burns, smoke, steam, shattered armor. His radio crackles with the wingman's voice. Jesus, Cole, you did it. Merritt answers only once. No. The sun did. He levels out, skimming treetops toward the Rhine, fuel almost gone. The mirrors are cracked, scorched, useless now, but the idea worked. A weaponized flash, a perfect blind spot, a pilot mad enough to fly through it. On the ground, the 78th Infantry's scouts move in cautiously that afternoon. They find the train derailed, locomotive half buried, turrets twisted sideways like broken wrists. There's no return fire. The Iron Centipede, the legend of the Ahr Valley, is silent. In Allied reports, the credit line will read, "Armored train destroyed by single P-38, low-level strike, presumed hit by rocket salvo." Nobody will mention the mirrors. No one except Merritt's crew chief, who'll find bits of reflective glass fused to the wing root and shake his head. Crazy bastard used sunlight for ammo. That night, when the squadron celebrates, Merritt isn't there. He's in the hangar, wiping soot from his plane, running a finger over the melted mirror mount. For the first time, he realizes how close the math had been. 3 seconds of light, 1 breath of timing. Too high, he'd have been slag. Too low, a name on a report. He'll fly again in 2 days, orders or not. But for now, he just sits under the wing, watching dawn slide through the clouds, quiet, silver, and deadly bright. March 10th, 1945, 1,400 hours. The R Valley is still burning. Smoke from the wrecked armored train coils skyward like a second river, black and slow, drifting east. Down in the valley floor, infantry from the 310th Engineer Battalion pick their way through twisted rail lines and hot steel. They find fragments of mirrors, warped metal, and a melted aluminum panel that once belonged to a P-38's drop tank. The Germans call the wreck Zugpanzer 12. To the Americans on the ground, it's just the ghost train. By 1500 hours, the first reconnaissance reports reach IX Tactical Air Command headquarters in Euskirchen. Colonel Walter Carter, the group commander, reads the coded message twice. Enemy armored train destroyed. Unknown method, no losses, 1 aircraft observed. His first reaction isn't pride, it's fury. No one authorized that run, he says. Whoever did, it's grounded. But grounding a ghost is harder than it sounds. Merritt is already back across the Rhine, refueling on a forward strip near Bad Neuenahr, his Lightning sitting crooked on its landing gear, half a mirror still wired under the wing. The crew chief eyes the damage and whistles. "You brought hell to breakfast, sir." Merritt doesn't answer. He just asks for a wrench, pries off the last mirror, and stares at his reflection in it, his face split by soot, sunlight flashing off the curve. When the mechanics pull the gun cameras that evening, they see what no one else could. The first few frames are blinding white light filling the lens. Then, for 3 seconds, the camera clears just enough to show a silver blur knifing through a canyon of flame. 2 rockets hit, smoke covers the world, and the reel ends in static. The intelligence officers debate whether the reflection was sun, glare, or deliberate. One, a former physics teacher from Kansas, looks at the angle and mutters, "That wasn't luck. That was geometry." News filters outward. At dinner, someone from the 401st Squadron says, "Cole flew into the sun and shot fire out the other side." Another claims he painted the plane chrome on purpose. The legend grows faster than the investigation. At 2000 hours, the Germans finally respond. Radio intercepts catch Wehrmacht transmissions from the Eifel sector. Flakzug annihilated by low-altitude fighter employing reflective device. Enemy aircraft vanished under sunlight glare. The words reach OKW headquarters in Berlin 2 days later. Filed under anomalous strike. A colonel dismisses it as hysteria. A pilot cannot weaponize sunlight. But the report stays on file, tagged taktische Täuschung durch Lichtspiegelung, tactical deception by reflected light. That night, Merritt writes his first and only letter about the mission. It's to his brother, still training in Florida. The handwriting is tight, almost mechanical. You ever look at how light bends off a window in the morning? It blinds you, even when you know it's coming. Germans forgot that. They build armor against metal, not against imagination. He doesn't mention the order he broke, or the fact that his CO has filed a reprimand. He doesn't care. The mirror trick worked once. It'll never work again, not the same way. The train, the light, the canyon, the hour, they all lined up like gears in a clock. But he knows something deeper now. Every fortress has a weak point that isn't built. It's believed. Across the valley, German recovery crews fight to clear the wreck. The Centipede's remains are scattered across 300 meters of track. One flak car still sits upright, barrels twisted into a knot. The locomotive's armor plates have peeled back like tin. Inside the cab, the driver's seat is empty. Steam valves frozen in the open position. An engineer from the 11th Panzer Division surveys the scene and writes in his report, "Enemy used light to mask approach. Impossible to defend with current optics. Recommend issuing tinted periscopes." They never will. By March, Germany has no time, no copper, no trains left to armor. 2 days later, Colonel Carter calls Merritt into headquarters. The air smells of kerosene and cigarette ash. Carter doesn't yell. He just stares. "You think you're some kind of artist?" Merritt says nothing. Carter slides a form across the desk. Reprimand for unauthorized combat sortie. Below it, another sheet. Recommendation for Distinguished Flying Cross. "They canceled each other out," Carter says. "So don't make me choose which one you deserve." Merritt signs neither. He salutes, turns, and walks out. Outside, the mechanics are already polishing his Lightning. The mirrors are gone, but the shine remains a silver skin reflecting everything around it, even the sunset. That evening, while the rest of the squadron drinks, Merritt stands by the runway, watching light crawl along the fuselage. The river glows red behind him. For a brief second, the plane seems to vanish, swallowed by its own reflection. He touches the metal, feeling warmth under his fingers, and whispers to no one in particular. "You don't fight armor with bombs. You fight it with ideas." By the time the sun sets, the iron Centipede is legend. Its wreck will stay in that valley until war's end, a twisted shrine to a man who turned sunlight into a weapon and disobedience into doctrine. The Germans will never rebuild it, and the Americans will never admit the attack was unauthorized. But the pilots who fly after will know one thing: the line between madness and genius is sometimes the width of a mirror. March 12, 1945. Over the ruins of Arweiler, the smoke has settled, but the argument hasn't. Headquarters wants to court-martial Merritt. The infantry wants to buy him drinks. The engineers call him Saint Cole of the Sunbeam. The reports won't agree. Half the observers think the P-38 came from the west, half from below. A few insist they saw ×2 aircraft, because no one believes one man could do it. The Army calls it a morale victory. The Air Corps calls it a discipline problem. Merritt just calls it Tuesday. He's grounded the next morning, nominally for engine inspection. In practice, it's punishment wrapped in maintenance. But pilots talk. Within 24 hours, men from the 392nd and 405th Squadrons start showing up at his hangar pretending to borrow fuel trucks. They just want to see the plane. They crouch under the wing, run hands over the scorched aluminum, whispering like monks at a relic. "You really flashed him?" one asks. Merritt grins, lighting a cigarette. "The sun did the aiming. I just flew where it pointed." While command debates, the Germans adapt. 2 days after the Centipede's death, Allied reconnaissance photographs show armored trains east of Koblenz, with tarps stretched over their turrets and periscopes shaded by improvised hoods, coal shovels, bent plates, anything to dull glare. Intelligence intercepts a Luftwaffe memo warning of Anglo-American optical interference attacks. The memo proposes anti-flash goggles for gun crews. It also recommends painting trains matte gray to reduce mirror exposure. The Luftwaffe's engineers even try a countermeasure: smoked glass filters in rangefinders. The irony, so thick it could choke them, is that it blinds the crews more than it saves them. They can no longer target anything in dawn light without seeing ghosts. Meanwhile, Merritt's own ghosts keep him awake. He dreams of the canyon, the way sunlight split around his canopy like a blade. He hears the train's whistle shrill, endless echoing in the dark. Each time he wakes, the noise dissolves into the rumble of other P-38 seconds taxiing at dawn. On March 13th, his CO finally calls him back. "Sit down," Carter says, pointing to a chair that looks recently kicked. "You know what happens when you make heroes out of rule breakers." Merritt just shrugs. Carter exhales smoke through his nose. The brass wants to know how you did it. Merritt leans forward. Sir, it wasn't a secret. They always looked up. I just gave them something brighter to look at. Carter studies him for a long moment. We can't train that. Then don't, Merritt says. Just don't stop it when it shows up. Carter says nothing. He just pushes across a manila folder. Inside, reconnaissance photos of a rail depot near Bad Kreuznach, another armored train hidden under camouflage netting. If you so much as warm up your props without orders, Carter warns, you're finished. Merritt nods slowly, closes the folder, and replies, then I'll wait for the light. That afternoon, the squadron flies a sanctioned strike east of Bonn. Merritt isn't on the roster, but his lightning sits fueled. The mirror mounts are gone, yet the idea burns behind his eyes. He spends the flight time in the briefing tent, sketching diagrams of sun angles on scrap paper, calculations of reflection, refraction, shadow. He circles the phrase time's mirror geometry as decoy mechanism, asterisk. It's the first written record of what engineers decades later will call time's directed glare tactics, asterisk. At 1,800 hours, a message crackles over radio intercept. A second armored train has left Mainz, heading north to reinforce Koblenz. Merritt hears it through the tent wall, half asleep, half waiting. The sun is dipping behind the western ridge. He looks out and sees the world bathed in orange metal. Every window, every canopy, sparkles. It's always there, he mutters. People just forget how bright it is. The order to stay grounded stands. Merritt ignores it. At 1,835, ground crew hears his engines spool up, twin Allisons whining in harmony. The tower calls no response. Someone runs to the tarmac, waving. Too late. The lightning lifts off, silvered by the setting sun, sliding east like a ghost over the Rhine. The radio logs will later show a single message transmitted 6 minutes after takeoff. Is greater than mirrors down, lights up. One run. In the same moment, near Bingen, a German train crew sees a flash rolling down the river valley, low, silent, turning the whole canyon into a furnace of light. They never fire. The reflection blinds them long enough for 4 rockets to punch through the lead wagon. By the time the echo fades, the train is burning. Merritt vanishes again into dusk, canopy glowing like the sun itself. When the 401st finds him hours later, he's asleep under the wing, grease on his hands, mirror fragments in his pocket. Colonel Carter doesn't bother with a reprimand this time. He just mutters to the adjutant, "You can't court-martial physics." March 17, 1945. Dawn over the Moselle River. The Germans have begun painting their remaining trains matte black, covering every polished surface with soot, canvas, or desperation. Their manuals now warn of optical trickery and enemy glare devices. Orders circulate to run trains only at night. But night belongs to radar, and the Allies own radar. The Iron Centipede's death hasn't just stopped one train, it's paralyzed an entire network. The Wehrmacht's armored rail units, once the spearhead of mobile defense, now hide from their own shadows. At IX Tactical Air Command, the consequences are different. Merritt's mirror trick has become a ghost in the system, an unapproved, unwritten legend. Pilots whisper about flashing runs in tents and mess halls. Ground crews polish canopies just a little more, not enough to blind, just enough to gleam. And in the officer's lounge, someone pins a quote on the wall, handwritten in pencil. If they can't look at you, they can't shoot you. Headquarters doesn't know what to do with Merritt. He's too valuable to punish, too disobedient to promote. His record now holds a single phrase: independent tactical innovation, unrepeatable conditions. The bureaucratic way of saying miracle. Colonel Carter signs it himself, underlined twice, and then mutters, "May God help the next man who tries to copy you." But Merritt doesn't stop. He's still flying, still experimenting. He scavenges old mirror glass from crashed planes, from signal kits, from anywhere he can. He keeps fragments in his flight jacket like charms. When asked what he's doing, he says, learning what light wants. The mechanics start calling him Ghost Maker. The 370th Fighter Group moves east toward Andernach as the Rhine crossings expand. German anti-aircraft positions stiffen 88 seconds, ring the ridges, armored half-tracks roam the roads. But one threat refuses to die. A rail convoy nicknamed Gepanzerter Zug 105, a stripped-down armored train hauling fuel and ammunition through the Moselle tunnels. Its route cuts through valleys too steep for tanks and too narrow for bombers. 3 separate attacks fail to touch it. Recon photos show the convoy still intact, still moving. Command predicts it'll resupply the defenses at Koblenz within 48 hours. That night, Merritt sits alone on a fuel drum, studying a map of the valley. The sun will rise from the east, casting the rails in shadow. But by 0900, it'll bounce off the river, bend a natural mirror. He sketches the angle, the approach, the escape. No gadgets this time. No taped glass. Just sunlight and timing. One more trick, he whispers. After that, I'm done. At 0830, he's airborne, hugging fog banks, throttles low. The P-38's silver skin flashes like water when it breaks through the mist. He climbs barely 100 feet, enough to clear the poplars. On the radio, Carter's voice barks, "Cole, if you're in the air, turn around." Merritt doesn't answer. He flicks the radio off and lines up with the river. The valley opens before him like a rifle barrel. Below, Gepanzerter Zug 105 emerges from the west tunnel, armored plates glinting faintly under a weak sun. The gunners scan the sky but miss the light coming from behind them, sunlight ricocheting off the Moselle into their optics. For 10 precious seconds, their field of view is pure white. Merritt dives into that blindness. He drops to 50 feet, closing in. No mirror trick this time, just reflection off his fuselage, the same polished silver he'd refused to paint over. The light bounces forward, a moving flare. Gunners shout, spin turrets, fire blind. He squeezes the trigger. The 50 seconds chatter. Rockets streak ahead. The first hits the fuel car, turning the center of the convoy into a fireball. The second tears into a flak wagon. A chain reaction follows: heat, shells, smoke. The Moselle Valley becomes a furnace. Merritt pulls up at the last second, clears the explosion by yards. The shockwave slams him upward, tears a panel off his right boom. He steadies, grinning like a man who's outflown the world. Behind him, Zug 105 burns from engine to caboose, fire reflecting off the river like the sun applauding itself. By 1000, it's over. The fuel convoy is gone, its destruction visible from 10 miles away.